Alright everyone, we start off today with the most monumental news in all of modern US political history. The Bidens, they got a cat. Now I have a feeling that this timing of this announcement, because they've been looking into getting a cat now for, 6 months or something, coincides with particularly bad news on the political front for Beijing Biden's asterisk administration. Could be the slumping polls, the failure of Build Back bullshit, the failure of the OSHA mandate, the failure of, well, everything else. Take your pick. I think when you look at them all, as sort of a whole instead of individually, it's just a whole pile of bullshit. It's a whole pile of failure. So, you have to distract people. Oh my God, they got a cat. See, Biden is personable. He's just like me. He's not rich and crazy and power mad. He's not demented like his sundown moment the other day in Pennsylvania where he starts rambling and yelling about people's children. And anytime a politician brings up anything related to think of the children in any permutation, you know that they're trying to sell you horseshit. But first and foremost, before I get into this video, number one, there will be a pinned comment down below if you're watching this video on YouTube with links to other video hosting sites that I use. You should definitely join one or more of them, because I've decided that for the next 6 days I'm only doing one of my videos on YouTube each day. Of course, they had given me a strike. By the way, just striking Razor Fist the other day too, so he's making an exclusive, I guess, today, I'm sure. And so in solidarity, all of the videos minus one will be exclusives for the next 6 days, because I would have been banned for a week. The strike got reversed, but I'm like, fucking the writing's on the wall. I'm just going to prioritize other content. I can speak to people freely. I don't have to muzzle myself. I can be edgier. I can be more caffeinated on these new tech sites. Of course, YouTube at some point probably will start banning you for caffeinated beverages because you're corrupting the youth or some horseshit like that. And most of it's bot related. So you never know exactly what you're going to get banned for. Hey, I got this 10-year-old video of my cat and they claimed it was disinformation from Russia. What gives? And then, of course, your channel's locked down till the appeal goes through. It doesn't even matter if it's reversed. You spend 24, 48 hours without access to doing the things you need to do based on what a bot said because some rando flagged it, a fucking 5, 10-year-old video. So it's horseshit. It doesn't happen on any other site. Hell, it doesn't even happen on Facebook most of the time, and I haven't even bothered to use that platform in, 3 years now, or 4? Anyway, Biden's trying to distract people, and this happens a lot within politics. This is also sort of a microcosm of the kind of political strategy that really makes me worry with regards to Ukraine. You look at the last couple of days, the Biden administration has been countermanded by the Ukrainian leadership, which is Western-aligned by and large, to tell the truth. They are worried about Putin potentially invading, or at the very least rabble-rousing, showing up and then hoping East Ukrainian dissidents that don't like Kiev rise up and try to obtain, independence, aka Russian annexation. They're definitely worried about that. But Biden has gone so far beyond the pale that he's repeatedly ignored now the Ukrainian leadership's own summation of the situation. Their own leader the other day saying, well, look, I appreciate the U.S.'s efforts, and of course, we want to maintain sovereignty and so forth, but I think I would know better because, I actually live here. He backhanded Joe Biden. Well, I mean, that's not hard to do. The man has consistently been wrong on virtually every aspect of domestic and foreign policy since the asterisk administration began. Of course, the founders would have found it a little bit odd and sketchy for someone with such clear cognitive decline to be in any elected position on the federal level, let alone the presidency. But now the legacy media is going bananas because Joe Biden got a cat. And so the other day, front page news, Reuters, CNN, MSNBC, basically, name a legacy or missing link outlet that aligns with Biden, and they were talking about it. And of course, you get a stink piece from Fox. Well, all you're doing is adding fuel to the fire. It's not like it's going to stop the fact that there's a never-ending parade of huzzah for Joe Biden. Well, he's such a nice man. See, he likes cats. And if you, by the way, believe that it was his choice and that this isn't a purely political move, you don't know anything about Biden. You didn't study his Senate career, that's for sure, or his vice presidency, or anything over the last year, and don't understand how politics works, how power plays within politics work. Cats are a big mimetic thing. Really helpful with the young, low info, unintelligent TikTok era audience. That's why he got a cat. Oh, and we named it Willow after, I think, Joe Biden's favorite tree or some shit like that. Who gives a fuck? It's sort of like when politicians kiss babies, basically. It's the outgrowth of that for the internet era. Well, babies are cute, but these cats is something else. Hashtag lol cats. I'm trying to think of Joe Biden even like understanding any of this shit. I mean, it wasn't his unique personal decision. Joe Biden probably was involved. She's a stand by her man sort, which is why she doesn't mind the fact that Joe Biden has repeatedly engaged in sexual harassment throughout his career. She's sort of like Hillary Clinton. I think behind that, I'm a doctor and I like to read to kids persona. Yeah, there's a DC housewife sort of thing going on there. If they were normal people, they'd live in the waspish, maybe marginal upper middle class suburbs in a small McMansion, and she'd have a drinking problem, and they both have affairs, and he would go through his midlife crisis, 3 decades ago, and buy a Porsche or something. That would be them. They'd be a goddamn TV series. Instead, you get this boring, demented old man having sundown moments repeatedly over just the last month or so. And so they're like, hey, the polling's approaching 40% approval and dropping. Disapproval's now in the mid-50s. The gap is widening over time. We're not looking forward over the next year to any major successes. We probably can't get Build Back Better unless it's been slimmed down so much it might get blocked in the House, because the Republicans would be nuts to vote for it. They'll get Liz Cheney. The problem is that there's 7 Geek Squad members, and they'll hold the line. They did on the infrastructure bill. They didn't even want it because it was parsed from Build Back bullshit and watered down by Joe Manchin repeatedly. And so they all voted against it. Well, even if they get a Republican in the House to vote for it, it wouldn't pass. Well, I mean, they won't even put it forth for a vote if they think that'll happen. It's entirely possible that marginal Dems like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders might down it in the Senate, too. Just to be clear, if it gets watered down too much, Bernie might say, well, this is bullshit. We need universal pre-K. We need universal healthcare for all. We need, insert, pet project here that won't actually work. I love it when they talk about the infrastructure bill, too. I love how they're talking about, well, these federal projects will get rid of lead paint, as though that wasn't already something that localities, corporations, housing authorities, and state governments were already doing for the last 30 years. To be clear, lead paint is no longer particularly common except in slumlord tenements. Or lead pipes for the water supply. Dude, a handful of blue city areas still have lead pipe systems. That's because of the dysfunction of top-down style heavy-handed governance. These programs will be over budget, behind schedule, because they will involve the typical road crew analogy, which is 5 guys standing around watching one slowly shovel material into a pothole. Imagine how quickly they'll get rid of that lead paint. Well, with all the regulations involved, it would be quicker to just use a private contractor that's small enough to fall outside of OSHA. Hell, hire me. I'll get rid of the lead paint. I won't even wear a fucking dust mask. I probably grew up around lead paint to begin with. This might have something to do with the ICQ and Andy 6 trolling that I've done throughout the years. Biden's nuts. The legacy media is somehow worse. And these people know what they're doing. It's a fluff piece. It's basically, we don't have any positive economic news. None of them really reporting on the record economic growth for last year, because it's horseshit. Pro tip. The economy shrank when you adjust for the devaluation of the dollar. Just to be clear, that 5.4% is a lot lower than the inflation totals that we've been at consistently for some time now. And they can't report on that. They can't report on the job growth because the latest job numbers for several months in a row came in well below par, so they don't want to talk about that too much. Inflation, they're not going to touch that. They're not going to talk about Ukraine because it's a never-ending cavalcade of failures from Biden to the point where the Ukrainians are getting pissed off at him. Ukraine, it would be funny if the Ukrainian government says, okay, enough of this fucking horse shit, and they just say to Putin, they say, okay, we want a direct military partnership. Protect us from this nonsensical fool that's running the United States. You do realize that stranger things have happened within world politics and diplomacy, by the way. Biden, he got a cat. Wow. I remember when he gets a puppy to replace the dog that kept biting people that's now exiled back to Delaware. You know why he was willing to do that? Instead of saying, look, I love my dog, I want it in the White House, fuck you. Instead of changing the staff, hiring a behavioral therapist to come and train his dog, it's because it was for photo ops. He just wants the pupper around. Well, if pupper number 1 doesn't cut it, and of course his other dog died, so, it's sad, it's still a dog. You shouldn't blame the animal for its owners. You can blame the owners for the animal sometimes when it sucks ass. I do blame Biden for that. So Champ has to go back to Delaware, where Biden spends roughly a quarter of his time anyway. He's taken more vacation days than all former presidents in recent history combined. Somehow Trump was supposedly lazy, by the way. He went golfing too much at the Mar-a-Lago. So now he gets a cat. Wonderful. Now you can train the cat to come in during press conferences, and you can act like you're all flummoxed. Oh, hey, kitty, you have to go out. Yes, oh, yes, it's so purry. And the cameras will shine, and the people will go, aw. And some low-info voters will actually be taken in by this horse shit. It's such obvious and transparent propaganda that a lot of people won't even be able to wrap their heads around it. So it's kind of cringy, but Biden's an old man. He loves kitty. That's what it's about. Just buy a cat. Best investment the Bidens ever made. That's about all. Peace out.